Now that we've talked about absolute value and opposites, we're now going to talk about adding integers. Let's take the situation here. If a car goes 20 feet, let's say that's 20 feet, stops and then reverses 20 feet, they end up where they started, going 0 feet. And I can represent this mathematically, going 20 to represent the forward, plus negative 20 to show going in reverse, and since they ended up back where they started, I would have 0 feet. So they traveled 0 feet. And this is true all the time. When a number is added to its opposite, 20, and its opposite is negative 20, the sum is 0. So every time you add a number to its opposite, the sum is always 0. Some teachers like to call this additive inverses because they cancel each other out. There are a number of ways to model adding integers. One way would be using tiles. Another way would be to use a number line. And this is one of the ways that I like to model adding integers. Let's take this example here. On 2 plays, a football team first loses 8 yards and then gains 3 yards. Find negative 8 plus 3 to find the net result of the 2 plays. Well, on the first play, since they haven't gained or lost any yards, we start at 0. 0 right here, 0 yards. They lost 8 yards on the first play, so we're going to go back 8 yards to represent losing. So they're at negative 8 right now. And then it says on the second play, they gained 3 yards. So we're at negative 8 right now, but then they gained 3 yards. So 1, 2, 3. So that puts them right at negative 5. So from the 2 plays, they have a 5-yard loss, or negative 5. And I can represent this mathematically by setting up the expression that they did in the question. I could say negative 8 plus 3 is equal to negative 5. Simply by using the number line, I went back 8 and then came up 3 to negative 5. When adding positive and negative numbers, using models is not always feasible, and so I have rules that I can follow. When I'm adding 2 positive numbers together, like in this case here, 5 plus 6, I just simply add the 2 numbers together and keep them positive. When I add 2 negative numbers together, my sum will be negative, and I just add the 2 numbers together. Where I need my rules is basically when I'm working with different signs. In this case here, I have positive 7 plus negative 18. To add 2 numbers with different signs, I'm going to find the difference of their absolute values, and then their sum is going to have the sign of the greater absolute value. So here I have positive 7 and negative 18. I find the difference of their 2 absolute values. So the absolute value of 18 is going to be 18, and that absolute value of 7 is 7. So when I find the difference between 18 and 7, I know that it's 11. So now I need to see what is the sign. I know that the difference is going to be 11, and I look back at the absolute values. Remember, the absolute value of negative 18 is 18. Absolute value of 7 is 7. The greater one is the 18. So I'm going to keep the sign of the greater absolute value of the greater number. And so here, 7 plus negative 18 is going to be the 11, the difference, and I keep the sign of the greater one. So 7 plus negative 18 is going to be negative 11. And again, I can do another example. Negative 27 plus 14. I find the difference. I find the difference of their 2 absolute values, and I see that it is 13. Now, is it going to be positive or negative? And that's going to be based on the absolute value of the greater one. So the greater absolute value is negative 27, so my answer is going to be negative 13. So negative 27 plus 14 is negative 13. So now that we know some rules to adding numbers, positive and negative, let's work at this problem here. The earthquake monitor in Hockley, Texas is located in salt mine at an elevation of negative 416 meters. The elevation of the monitor in Albuquerque, New Mexico is 2,156 meters higher than the one in Hockley. Find the elevation of the monitor in Albuquerque. So here I'm going to be doing, let's first set up the expression. So it's going to be negative 416 plus 2,156. So I'm going to find the absolute value of negative 416, which is 416. I'm going to find the absolute value of 2,156, which is 2,156. I'll find the difference of those two, so 2,156 minus 416, and I get 1,740. So the difference is 1,740. I go back and I look at the absolute value of each number, and I see that 2,156 has the greater absolute value. So it is positive, so my sign of the sum is going to be positive as well. So the altitude, or the elevation of the monitor in Albuquerque, New Mexico is 1,740 meters high. So far we've only added two numbers. Let's look at an expression where I'm adding more than just two numbers. And I'm just basically going to end up using the order of operations. But let's say I have negative 12 plus negative 6 plus 15 plus negative 2. So I'm going to follow the order of operations. I'm going to add from left to right. So negative 12 plus negative 6. Negative plus a negative, so that's negative 18. Plus 15 plus negative 2. So next I have negative 18 plus 15. Different sign, so the difference between the two is, absolute value of the two is 3. Now I'm going to keep the sign of the greater absolute value, which would be negative 18, so negative 3 plus negative 2. And here I have a negative plus a negative, so it stays negative. Add the two numbers. 3 plus 2 is 5. So this expression simplifies to negative 5.